The most dangerous girl at St. Harrington Academy. Ruined my life. And somehow, it got worse. Because now, I'm being forced to tutor her. Yes, her. Camille Blake, the terrifying rich girl with anger issues, emotional problems, and enough money to buy an entire government. Probably. At first she only threatened me psychologically, normal stuff. Then she made me carry her food, buy her coffee, basically turned me into her exhausted little errand girl with anxiety. And now, apparently the entire school thinks I am her emotional support hostage. Honestly, fair. If you have watched part 1, then you already know my life has been spiritually collapsing for weeks. And if you are new here, hi, welcome. Quick recap before my suffering continues. I am Alara Vale, scholarship student, financially struggling, mentally unstable, and unfortunately trapped inside Camille Blake's terrifying orbit, after her father forced me to become her tutor. Since then, I have been threatened in hallways, publicly humiliated, emotionally damaged, and psychologically adopted against my will. Anyway, back to the cafeteria disaster. Because Brianna Monroe had just poured coffee all over me, in front of the entire school, and Camille Blake, oh, she was staring at her. Like murder had become academically acceptable. Camille looked at her for another long second. Then finally, so you do understand humiliation? Silence. The entire cafeteria stayed frozen. Nobody even moved. Camille stepped closer slightly, and for the first time since knowing her, I saw someone genuinely afraid of Camille Blake. Then explain, Camille said softly, why you thought embarrassing her publicly was intelligent. Brianna's face lost color. I was joking. No, Camille replied calmly. You were being stupid. The insult landed hard enough that nobody breathed. Madison slowly looked toward the ceiling like she wanted no involvement with this disaster. Brianna tried to recover. She's literally your little errand girl now. Wrong answer. Very wrong answer. Something shifted in Camille's expression immediately. Cold became colder somehow. Then finally, very quietly, Camille said, nobody humiliates her except me. Silence. My heartbeat stopped. What kind of terrifying possessive nonsense was that? The cafeteria looked equally traumatized, honestly. Brianna stared at Camille in disbelief. Camille held her gaze calmly. Then leave? Brianna left immediately. Her friends followed seconds later. Nobody spoke until they disappeared completely. Then slowly, carefully, cafeteria noise returned again, like everybody collectively survived a natural disaster. Camille finally looked at me. Her eyes moved over the coffee stain soaking my uniform. You're dripping on the floor? I looked down instantly. Oh, wonderful. I sounded intellectually gifted. Camille handed me a napkin. I accepted it quickly. Tea, thank you. Silence. Then, you let them talk to you too much. My fingers tightened around the napkin. Because the thing was, she was right. I did. Not because I enjoyed humiliation. Because survival required silence sometimes. But explaining that to Camille Blake sounded exhausting. So instead, sorry, Camille stared at me for another second, then looked annoyed, which confused me. Why was she irritated? I was the one covered in coffee and emotional damage. Madison finally stepped forward. Okay, she announced lightly. This has become psychologically exhausting, honestly? Correct. Madison looked toward me sympathetically. Come on, before I could answer. Camille spoke. Not you. Madison paused, then slowly looked toward Camille. Oh, Camille's attention remained on me. Her. My stomach tightened immediately. Wonderful. More fear. Exactly what my body needed. Madison blinked once. Then a tiny smile appeared briefly, like she noticed something. Oh, she murmured softly. Camille ignored her completely. Move. I followed immediately. Because survival instincts. The girls' restroom was empty, except for soft rain sounds against distant windows. Camille stood near the sinks while I awkwardly tried cleaning coffee from my shirt with paper towels. My hands still shook slightly. Honestly, they did that around her constantly now. Probably permanent nerve damage at this point. Camille watched quietly from across the room. Then finally, "You cry easily?" I froze instantly. Oh my God. Had she noticed earlier? Humiliating? No, lie. Massive lie. Camille tilted her head slightly. "You looked close." I focused harder on scrubbing the fabric. Inside my head, "Please stop looking at me." Then suddenly, something soft hit my shoulder. I jumped. Actually jumped. Wonderful. I turned quickly. Camille had thrown a black blazer toward me. Her blazer. I stared at it in confusion. "Wear it? What? You smell like coffee?" Right. Because apparently public humiliation now came with fashion criticism. "I'm okay." Camille looked at me blankly. Then, that wasn't a suggestion. I immediately put the blazer on. Because I enjoyed living. The fabric swallowed me slightly. It smelled faintly like expensive perfume in cold weather, which unfortunately made my nervous system worse. Camille watched silently while I adjusted the sleeves awkwardly. Then, "You're too skinny." I nearly inhaled oxygen incorrectly. What kind of observation was that? I eat poorly. Silence. How did she even know that? Actually, no. I did not want answers. Camille stepped closer slowly. Not aggressively this time. Just enough to make my heartbeat lose stability again. "You should have called me." My brain stopped functioning briefly. "What? If somebody bothers you again," Camille said calmly. "Call me." I stared at her in horror. That sounded deeply threatening for everybody involved. Inside my head, why would I ever do that? That sounds like summoning a demon. But aloud, okay. Camille studied me quietly. Then, "You're scared again." "I'm not." Lie, huge lie. For 1 second, just one, something almost amused flickered in Camille's eyes. Tiny, gone immediately. Then she stepped back again. 6 o'clock, she said calmly. Tutoring, and there it was. The reminder, no matter what strange moments happened between us, I still belonged to her schedule. I still fetched her food, still obeyed, still feared her. And honestly, that terrified me most of all. By Thursday night, I had developed a dangerous theory. Camille Blake might actually be trying to destroy my sanity professionally. Because there was no logical explanation for the way this girl existed. 1 minute she was terrifying Brianna Monroe into spiritual collapse. The next she was throwing her blazer at me like some emotionally unavailable mafia wife. None of it made sense. And unfortunately for me, confusion did not reduce fear. Not even slightly. I still jumped every time Camille said my name. Still apologized too much. Still felt my hands shaking whenever she looked directly at me for too long. Which happened often now. Too often. Coffee. I nearly dropped my notebook. Camille stood beside my desk before first period holding out money without expression. No greeting. No warning. Just emotional terrorism at 8 in the morning. Oh, okay. I took the cash carefully. Camille watched me for a second. Then, and don't buy the cheap one again. Wonderful. Apparently, I was now failing at coffee too. As I walked toward the cafeteria, whispers followed immediately. There goes her little assistant. Camille literally has her trained. That's terrifying. Correct. Very correct. I wondered briefly if it was possible to evaporate from embarrassment alone, hopefully. The music room stayed empty after classes ended. That was why I liked it. Nobody came there unless they actually enjoyed instruments. And rich students at Harrington usually preferred ruining lives recreationally instead of developing hobbies. Rain tapped softly against the tall windows while I sat alone beside the piano counting crumpled bills carefully. 20, 40, 60. Still not enough. My chest tightened painfully. The surgery deadline sat in my head constantly now. Every hour. Every shift. Every skipped meal. Not enough. I pressed my hand against my eyes briefly. Don't cry. Do not cry again. You're exhausted already. My phone buzzed suddenly. Mom? I answered immediately. Mama? Her voice sounded tired. That scared me instantly. Alara, she said softly. Did you eat today? Lie. Lie immediately. Yes. Another lie added to my growing collection. Good, my mother whispered. Don't keep saving everything for me. My throat tightened painfully. Mama, the surgery money. She paused slightly. We're still short, aren't we? Silence. Rain against windows. Piano keys cold beneath my fingertips. Inside my chest, panic curled slowly. Because yes, we were short. Very short. And no matter how much tutoring money I got from the Blakes, it still wasn't enough yet. I'll figure it out, I whispered. My mother sighed quietly. You're just a child. No, I wasn't. Children didn't count medication prices before sleeping. Children didn't calculate survival constantly. Children didn't become personal assistants for terrifying rich girls to keep scholarships alive. I swallowed hard. I'm okay. Lie again. My mother went quiet for a second. Then softly, you sound tired. Something cracked painfully inside my chest. I looked down quickly before tears escaped. My voice shook slightly. I just need things to work. Silence. Then my mother spoke gently. Alara. I wiped my face quickly. Yes, you don't have to carry everything alone. That nearly destroyed me completely. Because the thing was, I did. There was nobody else. So instead I smiled weakly despite her not being able to see it. I know. Another lie. After the call ended, I stayed still for several seconds, then finally let myself cry quietly. Not loudly, just enough to release pressure. Rain blurred the windows outside while my shoulders shook slightly. Honestly, my life felt exhausting, and somewhere deep inside all that exhaustion, anger lived too. At the bills, at the fear, at Harrington, at Camille Blake most of all. Because somehow even she had become another thing I constantly worried about. Another source of stress. Another problem I had to survive. You cry more than I expected. I stopped breathing. Oh my God. Slowly, very slowly, I turned around. Camille stood near the music room entrance. Black coat, rain behind her, expression unreadable. My soul nearly left my body. How long had she been there? Had she heard everything? Humiliation flooded my bloodstream instantly. I wiped my face quickly. Sorry. Why was I apologizing? I hated myself sometimes, honestly. Camille closed the door behind her quietly. You skip meals. Not a question, a statement. I stared at the floor immediately. Wonderful, fantastic. Now the terrifying rich girl knew I was poor, not scholarship poor. Actual struggling poor. It's none of your business. The words escaped before I could stop them. Silence. Oh no. I looked up immediately in panic. I didn't mean... Camille stared at me calmly. Cold. Quiet. Sharp. My heartbeat lost stability again. I'm sorry. Wonderful. Back to apologizing for oxygen. Camille walked closer slowly. Not angry, which somehow felt scarier. You save your lunch money? I gripped the edge of the piano bench tightly. Silence stretched painfully. Then finally, my mother is sick. The confession came out small. Embarrassingly small. Camille said nothing. Rain hammered harder against the windows. I stared at the piano keys because looking at her felt impossible suddenly. She needs surgery, I whispered. So I just save where I can, silence again. Then, and the tutoring money? I swallowed hard. It helps. God, I hated this conversation. Hated feeling exposed, weak, seen. I waited for pity, for judgment, for rich person sympathy. But Camille only stood there quietly, watching. Then finally, you should eat properly. I blinked slightly. What? That was her response? No dramatic speech? No fake sympathy? Just that? I'm fine. Lie. Massive lie. Camille looked at me for another second. Then, no, you're not. Something about the calm certainty in her voice hurt worse than pity would have. I looked away quickly, because suddenly my eyes stung again. Wonderful. Love that for me. Then unexpectedly, Camille reached into her coat pocket, pulled something out, placed it silently on top of the piano. I frowned slightly after she stepped back. Money. A thick stack of money. My stomach dropped instantly. No. Camille looked at me calmly. Take it, no. The answer came faster this time. Fear disappeared briefly beneath humiliation. I don't want your pity. For 1 second, something shifted in Camille's expression. Tiny. Almost invisible. Then, it's not pity. Then, what is it? Silence. Camille looked away first. Interesting. You need it. The room went quiet. Rain, breathing, thunder far outside. I stared at the money, then slowly shook my head. I won't take it. Camille watched me carefully. You'd rather starve? That's not your problem. Silence again. Then finally, Camille picked the money back up calmly. No argument, no pressure, which somehow surprised me more. You're stubborn. I learned from survival. Something unreadable crossed Camille's face briefly. Then the coldness returned fully. Tutoring, she said calmly. Tomorrow, 6, and just like that, she walked away. The music room door closed softly behind her, leaving me alone beside the piano with shaking hands and a heartbeat that suddenly felt too heavy. Outside, rain flooded the academy courtyard. Inside my chest, something had changed. Not safety, not comfort. Worse, because for the first time since meeting Camille Blake, I realized she was starting to see me as a real person. And somehow, that terrified me more than her threats ever had. Camille Blake did not come to school on Monday. At first, nobody believed it, because Camille Blake missing school felt unrealistic somehow, like the moon forgetting to exist. By second period, rumors had already spread across Harrington Academy. She got suspended. No, her father sent her overseas. I heard she got arrested. That honestly sounds possible. Madison finally slammed her locker shut and looked exhausted. She has the flu, she said flatly. You people are ridiculous. The hallway immediately looked disappointed. Honestly. Same. Not because I miss Camille. Absolutely not. Mostly because when Camille wasn't at school, the building felt different, louder, less tense, like everybody could finally breathe properly. And weirdly, that unsettled me, which was concerning psychologically. At lunch, nobody handed me a black credit card. Nobody ordered me around. Nobody stared silently until I got nervous. It should have felt freeing. Instead, I kept expecting Camille to appear suddenly behind me like an expensive horror movie villain. Tragic. By the end of classes, I had almost convinced myself I could enjoy one peaceful evening. Then the Blake driver arrived outside my part-time job. Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Rain fell softly outside the convenience store windows while I stocked instant noodles pretending my life wasn't cursed. Then the front bell rang. I looked up and immediately regretted being born. The driver approached calmly. Miss Vale, I stared at him with the fear of a woman recognizing incoming emotional damage. Yes, Miss Blake asked for you. No, absolutely not. I considered hiding in the storage room permanently. I already tutored her yesterday. She's sick. Wonderful. Fantastic. Beautiful news. Hopefully not fatal, though. I wasn't evil, just emotionally exhausted. The driver handed me an envelope. Inside, cash. More money than I usually made in 2 weeks. My stomach tightened immediately. She said double payment. Of course she did. Because apparently billionaires solved everything by aggressively throwing money at people. The smart decision would have been saying no. Unfortunately, hospital bills existed. So 30 minutes later, I stood inside the Blake mansion again, wondering if this counted as punishment from God. The house felt quieter tonight, darker somehow. A maid walked past carrying medicine nervously. Interesting. Even adults feared Camille Blake. Comforting. The driver stopped outside Camille's bedroom door. She hasn't eaten. Wonderful. I loved receiving terrifying information before entering dangerous environments. The driver hesitated briefly, then lowered his voice. She gets difficult when sick. Oh my God, what did that mean? Before I could escape, the driver opened the door, and there she was. Camille Blake looked terrible. Not ugly terrible. Unfortunately, even illness respected her beauty. But different. Hair messy. face pale, black sweatshirt hanging loosely off one shoulder. She sat against the headboard surrounded by untouched medicine and what looked like emotional violence. Dark eyes lifted toward me immediately. Silence. Then, "You're late." I checked the clock automatically. I was early. Liar. Sorry, wonderful. Back to apologizing professionally. The driver quietly escaped before Camille could emotionally destroy him too. Coward. Traitor. The bedroom itself looked massive. Dark walls, soft lighting, rain against giant windows, and somehow despite the luxury, the room felt lonely. Like nobody stayed there longer than necessary. "You look awful," I blurted accidentally. Silence. Oh my God. I nearly swallowed my own tongue. Camille stared at me blankly. I started panicking immediately. I mean sick. Pause. "You look sick." Inside my head, excellent recovery, Lara. Truly gifted under pressure. Camille looked away first. Interesting. "You talk too much when nervous." "I'm not nervous." Lie. Huge lie. Camille coughed suddenly. Rough. Painful. The sound immediately wiped the fear from my brain for a second. Because she genuinely sounded bad. "Did you take your medicine?" "No." "Why?" Camille looked irritated already. "It tastes disgusting." I stared at her. "You're acting like a child?" The second the words left my mouth, I froze. Silence. Complete silence. Oh God, I had finally done it. I had insulted Camille Blake directly, and now I would probably be buried somewhere expensive. Slowly, very slowly, Camille looked at me. Cold dark eyes steady on mine. My pulse started sprinting immediately. "I'm sorry." Of course I apologized. Naturally. Spiritually. Camille just stared another second. Then unexpectedly, "You're shaking again." "Wonderful. Love that observation." I quickly hid my hands behind my back. "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." There it was again. That sentence? Always calm. Always quiet. I hated how much it affected me. Camille looked toward the medicine tray lazily. "Make tea?" I blinked. "What? You heard me?" "Right. Of course." I was apparently part-time tutor, full-time servant now. Wonderful career progression. Still, I went downstairs quietly and made tea because survival mattered. The kitchen staff looked deeply shocked watching me. One maid whispered, "She's letting someone in her room willingly?" Interesting. Apparently this was historical. I carried the tea upstairs carefully. Camille remained exactly where I left her, motionless against the pillows. Too still, honestly. For the first time since meeting her, she looked tired, not angry, not intimidating, just exhausted. The realization unsettled me deeply. "Tea," I said softly. Camille accepted the cup silently, then grimaced after one sip. "It's hot," I stared at her. That's usually how tea works. Silence. Then, very faintly, Madison's laugh echoed from the hallway outside. "Oh no!" The devil's sidekick arrived. Madison pushed the bedroom door open carrying snacks, stopped immediately, then looked between us slowly. "Oh," she said softly. "This is fascinating." Camille looked unimpressed. "What do you want?" Madison dropped onto the armchair casually. "I came to see if you died. How thoughtful." Then Madison looked toward me. "You're still alive, too. Congratulations, honestly." Valid observation. Madison opened chips peacefully. "You know," she told me casually, "Camille once threatened a doctor. I nearly choked on oxygen." Camille looked bored. "He was incompetent." "He told you to rest." "He was disrespectful." Madison looked toward me sympathetically. "See what I deal with?" I almost smiled. Almost. Then Camille coughed again. Harder this time. Madison immediately looked less amused. "Did you take medicine?" "No." Madison closed her eyes briefly. "Oh my God." Then she pointed at me. "Make her take it." I stared at her in horror. "Absolutely not." That sounded suicidal. Camille looked equally unimpressed. "I'm not 5. You're worse," Madison replied. At least children fear consequences. Then Madison stood. I have dinner plans. She looked toward me. Good luck surviving, and left. Traitor. The room became quiet again. Rain hammered softly outside. Camille rested against the headboard with tired eyes half closed now. You should take the medicine, I said carefully. No, wonderful. A sick dictator. My favorite genre. I stood awkwardly beside the bed for several seconds. Then finally, if you don't take it, I whispered, you won't get better. Camille opened her eyes slowly. Something about her being sick made her stare feel less sharp somehow. Still dangerous, still intense, but softer around the edges. Like exhaustion weakened the armor slightly. You care? The question caught me off guard. What? Camille watched me silently. Then you sound worried. Inside my head, you look half dead. Obviously, I'm worried. But aloud, you're my tutoring job. Silence. Camille looked at me another second, then finally took the medicine. I nearly collapsed from relief, honestly. She swallowed the pills with visible annoyance, then handed the glass back silently. There, she muttered. Happy? Yes. The answer escaped too quickly. Camille noticed immediately. Of course she did. Something unreadable crossed her face briefly. Then she leaned back against the pillows again. Quiet. I adjusted the blanket awkwardly near the edge of the bed, then froze. Because Camille suddenly grabbed my wrist, warm fingers, weak grip from sickness, still enough to stop my heart instantly. I looked down immediately. Oh my God. Camille's eyes stayed half closed now. Tired. Heavy with fever. You're warm, she murmured quietly. My brain stopped functioning. I should go. Her grip tightened slightly. Not threatening. Just there. Stay? The word landed softly between us, and for the first time since meeting Camille Blake, she sounded less like a storm, and more like somebody lonely. After the night Camille Blake asked me to stay, everything became worse. Not easier. Worse. Because now my brain had started betraying me. Before, Camille existed in two categories only: terrifying, emotionally dangerous, simple, manageable. Now, unfortunately, my stupid heart had added sick and strangely human, which was deeply inconvenient. I blamed the fever and exhaustion and maybe temporary psychological damage because there was absolutely no way I was developing sympathy for the girl who made me carry her coffee like an underpaid assistant. Absolutely not. I refused. By Wednesday, Camille had returned to school, and apparently illness only made people fear her more. The hallway outside economics class went silent the second she appeared. Black coat, dark sunglasses, expression cold enough to refrigerate food. Students moved aside automatically, like survival instincts activated collectively. Camille barely acknowledged anyone. Then her eyes landed on me. My stomach tightened instantly. Wonderful, still terrified, excellent consistency. She walked toward me calmly. Everyone watched. Of course they did. Public suffering had become my brand. Camille stopped directly in front of me. You didn't answer your phone. Silence. I blinked nervously. You called me? I sent 3 messages. Oh. I had muted her contact after she started texting. Come downstairs. Coffee. Where are you? Late. Like an emotionally unavailable prison warden. I was working. Camille stared at me another second. Then, you looked tired yesterday. Students nearby immediately started whispering. Oh my God. Absolutely not. I glanced around in panic. This school already thought I was Camille Blake's emotional support hostage. Now she was publicly noticing my health? Wonderful. Rumors were about to become catastrophic. I'm fine, I whispered quickly. Lie. Camille looked unconvinced. Then Madison appeared beside her, carrying iced coffee. Madison looked between us once, then immediately sighed. Oh no, Camille ignored her. Madison, however, looked deeply entertained. You know, she told me casually, she asked where you were 4 times yesterday. Camille's gaze moved toward her slowly. Dangerous. Madison raised one hand. What? It's true? Silence. Then Camille looked back at me. Tutoring tonight? Not a question. I nodded immediately. Okay. Camille walked away. The hallway slowly exploded into whispers the second she disappeared. She notices her now. That's terrifying. I'd transfer schools honestly. Correct. Very correct. That evening, the tutoring session started strangely quiet. No threats, no cold comments, no emotional warfare. Honestly, that unsettled me more. Rain tapped softly against the giant study windows while I explained formulas nervously. Camille actually listened, which was horrifying. At one point, she answered an equation correctly. I blinked down at the notebook in shock. That's right. Camille leaned back slightly. I know. The confidence irritated me spiritually. Still, something inside me felt strangely relieved, like maybe all this suffering wasn't academically useless after all. Then Camille looked toward me calmly. You ate today? I froze immediately. What? You stopped shaking? Silence? Oh my God, she noticed that too? I stared down at my notes quickly, because making eye contact suddenly felt dangerous in a completely different way now. I always eat lie. Camille looked unimpressed. You're still bad at lying? Before I could answer, my phone rang. The hospital. Every muscle in my body tightened instantly. Fear swallowed everything else. I answered immediately. Hello? The nurse sounded serious. Miss Vale, your mother's condition worsened this evening. My stomach dropped. What? We need you to come tonight. Everything around me blurred briefly. The room, the rain, the notebook in my hands. Gone. All I heard was, worsened. No. Not now. Please not now. How much? I whispered. Silence on the other end. Then, we need to begin preparing for surgery soon. Money. Always money. My chest tightened painfully. I stood too quickly from the chair. I'm coming. My voice shook badly now. I grabbed my bag immediately, papers falling, pen dropping, breathing uneven. Across the table, Camille watched silently, sharp eyes following every movement. Alara, I have to go. My hands trembled violently while shoving books into my bag. Please be okay. Please be okay. Please. Alara. I said, I have to go. My voice cracked slightly. Humiliating. I rushed toward the study door, then stopped, because Camille stood in front of it now, calm, still, watching me carefully. Fear and panic collided violently inside me. Please move. Camille stared down at me. What happened? My mother's in the hospital. The words came out broken. Messy. Wrong. Something changed in Camille's expression instantly. Tiny. But there. Then I'll drive. No. You're shaking. I said no, because accepting help from Camille Blake felt dangerous. Emotionally dangerous. And right now I could barely breathe properly already. Camille looked at me silently for another second, then stepped aside. I rushed past her immediately, out of the mansion, into the rain. The hospital smelled like disinfectant and exhaustion. I hated hospitals. Too white, too quiet, too expensive. My shoes squeaked softly against the floor while I hurried toward my mother's room, trying not to panic visibly. Please be okay, please. I reached the hallway corner, then froze. Camille stood near the reception desk. My heartbeat stopped instantly. Oh my God, what was wrong with this woman? Black coat. Rain still damp in her dark hair, expression unreadable. The receptionist handed papers back toward her politely. Camille signed something calmly. My stomach twisted slowly. No, I already knew. The realization crawled through me painfully. Money. She paid something. Humiliation flooded my chest immediately. Before I could stop myself, I walked straight toward her. Camille looked up. Alara, what did you do? Silence. The receptionist awkwardly disappeared instantly. Coward. Camille held my gaze calmly. Your mother needed treatment. Rage exploded through me so suddenly it scared even me. I didn't ask you to do that. She needed help. I said, I didn't ask you. My voice echoed sharply across the hallway. Several nurses looked over immediately. I didn't care. For the first time since meeting Camille Blake, fear disappeared completely beneath anger. "You think I need your pity?" I whispered harshly. Camille's expression tightened slightly. "It's not pity. Then what is it?" Silence. Rain hammered softly against distant hospital windows. I stared at her with shaking hands. Months. Months of humiliation. Fear, control, embarrassment, getting her food, being ordered around, being terrified to breathe wrong near her, and now suddenly she wanted to play savior? No, absolutely not. "You made my life miserable." The words escaped before I could stop them. Camille went still. "You threatened me," I continued shakily. "You humiliated me every single day. Alara, I was scared of you." Silence. Real silence. Something shifted across Camille's face. Not anger. Worse. Shock. Genuinely hadn't understood that before. My chest hurt painfully now. "I hated coming to school," I whispered. "I hated hearing your voice. I hated every time people called me your pet." Camille stared at me quietly, and for the first time, she looked affected. Actually affected, not cold, not untouchable, hurt, which somehow made me angrier. "You don't get to bully people," I whispered, then suddenly decide to save them. Alara. My eyes burned painfully now. "You don't get to do that." Camille stepped closer slowly. Not intimidating this time. Careful, like she was approaching something fragile. "I was trying to help. I don't want your help." Lie. Partially. Because my mother needed that money desperately, and that somehow made everything hurt worse. Camille looked down briefly. Then finally, "I didn't know." The words came quiet, almost rough. I laughed bitterly. "Of course you didn't, because girls like Camille Blake never notice damage while causing it. They just move through life destroying things beautifully." I stepped backward slowly. "If my mother gets better," I whispered, "I'll pay you back, Alara." "And after graduation?" I swallowed hard. "You stay away from me." Silence. Camille looked at me like the words physically hurt. Good. Maybe now she understood. Maybe now she finally realized. I had never been playing along. I had been terrified. After the hospital fight, Camille Blake stopped speaking to me at school, which should have made me happy. It didn't. Everything just felt wrong now. Before, Camille's presence followed me everywhere. Cold stares, quiet commands, that terrifying voice saying my name like a warning. Now, nothing. No texts, no coffee orders, no black credit cards shoved into my hands before class. Nothing. And somehow the absence felt louder than the bullying ever had. I hated that, deeply, because I was finally getting what I wanted, distance, freedom. So why did my chest feel heavy every time I noticed the empty seat beside the courtyard fountain where Camille usually stood? Tragic. Absolutely tragic. Madison noticed first, of course. She noticed everything. "You yelled at her pretty badly. I nearly dropped my pencil." Madison sat beside me in the library, looking strangely serious for once. "That wasn't your business," I muttered quietly. Madison shrugged. "Camille made it my business when she stopped sleeping." My stomach tightened slightly. "No, absolutely not. Not my problem. She'll survive." Madison looked at me carefully. "That's the thing," she said softly. "Camille usually doesn't care enough to get hurt." Silence. I focused harder on my notes, because conversations about Camille Blake's emotions felt dangerous. "She paid the hospital bills and came home looking like somebody stabbed her," Madison continued. "That's honestly new for her." My grip tightened slightly around the pen. I hated this conversation, hated the guilt crawling beneath my ribs. Madison leaned back in her chair slowly. "You know she fixed the streetlights near your bus stop?" I looked up immediately. "What?" She told the city office they were unsafe. My stomach dropped. "No, that was impossible." Madison watched my expression carefully. "She sits outside your part-time job sometimes too." Silence. Rain tapped softly against the library windows. She never goes inside, Madison added. She just waits until you leave. What? She follows your bus home from a distance. My heartbeat became deeply concerning. Inside my head, oh my God, this woman is insane. But underneath the panic, something softer hurt quietly. Because suddenly all the strange things made sense. The repaired streetlights, the safer roads, the black car I occasionally noticed behind my bus late at night. Camille. Always Camille. Madison sighed softly. She doesn't know how to care about people normally. Pause. Honestly, I don't think she's ever cared before at all. I looked down quickly, because suddenly my eyes burned. Wonderful. Love, emotional devastation before lunch. Madison stood slowly. She's trying, Alara. Then she left, leaving me alone with a heartbeat that suddenly felt too loud. 2 weeks after the hospital outburst, I still had not fully forgiven her. I was not sure I was supposed to yet. Forgiveness felt like something that needed more time than 2 weeks. More honesty, more proof. But the anger had started losing its edges, softening into something more complicated, something I did not have a clean word for yet. Then it rained. Not the polite kind, the kind that decides immediately. My part-time shift ended late, and the city blurred silver outside the convenience store windows, while I stood beneath the tiny awning wondering if this was punishment for something specific. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered carefully. Hello? Stay where you are. My heartbeat stopped instantly. Camille. Only Camille Blake could sound terrifying through a storm. Before I could answer, the call ended. Wonderful communication skills. 10 minutes later, a black Bentley pulled quietly beside the sidewalk. The passenger door opened automatically. Camille sat inside, black coat, dark hair slightly damp, expression unreadable. Rain hammered against the roof while city lights reflected across the car windows. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Camille said quietly, "Get in." Every survival instinct immediately screamed yes. Every emotional instinct screamed no. Unfortunately, my shoes were already soaked and I was tired enough to fight God personally. So I got in. The door shut softly behind me. Warmth filled the car instantly. Silence settled heavily between us while rain battered the windows outside. Camille looked thinner. I noticed it immediately. Less polished somehow, like she stopped caring about appearances after the hospital. Good. She deserved emotional suffering, honestly. Probably. The driver pulled away from the curb. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Then finally, very quietly, Camille said, "I'm sorry." My breath caught instantly. No. Not Camille Blake apologizing. That felt unnatural. Apocalyptic, maybe. I stared toward the rain outside instead. Silence stretched. Then, I didn't know you were actually scared of me. Something painful twisted inside my chest. Because the thing was, of course I was. Everybody was. Camille leaned back slightly. Her voice stayed low. People usually pretend, pause, or fight back. Another pause. You just endured it. Rain blurred the city lights outside into gold and silver streaks. I gripped my sleeves tighter. You humiliated me. I know. You threatened me. I know. You made me hate school. Camille closed her eyes briefly. The movement looked exhausted, not angry, just tired. I know the sincerity in her voice hurt worse than excuses would have. Silence settled heavily again. Then suddenly the Bentley stopped. I frowned slightly. The road ahead flooded heavily with rainwater. Traffic completely blocked. Wonderful. The driver sighed softly. We may need to wait. Thunder cracked loudly overhead. Camille opened the car door before I could react. What are you doing? I asked immediately. Come outside. Excuse me? Was she mentally stable? It's raining. Camille looked at me calmly. I noticed. Then she stepped into the storm. Oh my God. This woman had genuinely lost her mind. Rain soaked her instantly. Black coat darkening, hair dripping, city lights reflecting against wet streets. Then Camille looked back toward me and held out her hand. My heart did something deeply stupid. I stepped out slowly. Cold rain hit immediately. Thunder echoed above us while water flooded the sidewalks. "What are we doing?" I asked softly. Camille said nothing at first. She just looked at me, really looked at me. Then finally, "I don't know how to do this properly." The honesty shocked me silent. Camille Blake always sounded certain, controlled, untouchable, but right now, she looked almost nervous, which felt impossible. Rain slid down her face while cars passed distantly through the storm. "You said I made you scared to breathe around me," Camille said quietly, and I hated hearing that. I swallowed hard. Camille stepped closer slowly. Not intimidating this time. Careful. Like she was terrified I might disappear. I've spent my entire life hurting people before they could hurt me first. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. Tiny, almost invisible. Still enough to destroy me emotionally. I thought control meant strength. She laughed bitterly once. But then you started looking at me like I was a monster. Tears mixed with rain across my cheeks before I realized I was crying. Wonderful. Emotional collapse in public. Love that for me. Camille noticed immediately. Her expression tightened painfully. "Alara, I hated you," I whispered shakily. I wanted to pause. But every time you got softer, I got angrier because I didn't know what to do with it. Rain poured harder around us. Camille stared at me silently. Then suddenly, she knelt, right there in the rain. My heart stopped. Oh my God. Cars moved slowly around us while thunder cracked overhead, and Camille Blake, the most feared girl at St. Harrington Academy, knelt in front of me soaking wet. "Camille," I whispered in horror. "What are you doing?" She looked up at me quietly, dark eyes completely stripped of pride now. "I'm apologizing." My chest physically hurt. "You don't kneel for people," I whispered. "I do for you." The words shattered something inside me completely. Rain soaked through my clothes while Camille continued softly. "I was cruel to you. I scared you. I made your life harder when you were already suffering." Tears blurred my vision completely now. "And the worst part?" Camille whispered roughly. "I liked that you were afraid of me." Pause. Until I realized you actually were. Silence. Real silence. Only rain. Thunder. Breathing. Then finally, very quietly, Camille said, "I love you." The world stopped. No dramatic music. No fireworks. Just rain pouring endlessly around us, and Camille Blake looking at me like loving me was the first honest thing she had ever done. "I know I don't deserve you," she whispered, "but I love you anyway." My heartbeat hurt. Actually hurt. Because the terrifying truth was, somewhere between the tutoring in the hospital and the silent acts of care, I had fallen in love with her too. And maybe that made me insane. Slowly, very slowly, I stepped closer, then grabbed her wrist tightly. "Get up," I whispered shakily. Camille stared at me. "Alara, please." Something in my voice must have affected her, because she finally stood slowly in front of me again. Rain soaked both of us completely. I looked up at her. This terrifying girl who once made me scared to breathe? This cold, beautiful disaster who learned too late how badly she hurt me. And despite everything, I still wanted her. "I'm still angry," I whispered. "I know you hurt me. I know you scared me." Something broke across Camille's face again. "I know." I swallowed hard. Then finally, honestly, "I think I loved you before I forgave you." Camille went completely still. For 1 second, the entire world disappeared. Then suddenly, she kissed me. Warm hands against my face, rain pouring around us, months of fear and anger and tension collapsing all at once. The kiss felt desperate, like Camille was terrified I'd disappear if she let go. And maybe part of me still wanted to. But another part, the exhausted, lonely, aching part, kissed her back anyway. Thunder cracked above the city while Camille Blake held me carefully for the first time in her life. Not controlling, not demanding, just afraid to lose me, and somehow, that version of her was the most dangerous one yet. Dating Camille Blake felt less like entering a relationship and more like surviving a natural disaster with emotional benefits. Not because she was cruel anymore. That part changed. Slowly, carefully, painfully. No, the problem was that Camille loved with the same intensity she used to control people, completely, and apparently nobody warned me beforehand. The Monday after the rain confession, I walked into St. Harrington Academy expecting whispers. What I did not expect was silence. Entire hallway silence. Students stared openly as Camille Blake walked beside me carrying my bag like the world had ended. My bag. The same girl who once made me carry coffee like an underpaid intern was now carrying my things. Inside my head, oh my God, society has collapsed. Camille looked calm as always. Black blazer, silver rings, cold face. Except now her hand rested lightly against my lower back while we walked. Possessive, protective, terrifying. Students moved aside automatically. Of course they did. One poor freshman nearly walked into Camille accidentally, then immediately apologized like she was speaking to royalty. Camille barely acknowledged her. Meanwhile, my nervous system continued malfunctioning, because despite everything, I still wasn't fully used to this version of her. "You're staring," Camille said quietly. I looked away immediately. "Sorry." Camille stopped walking. The hallway paused with us. Wonderful, public attention. My favorite thing. Camille turned toward me slowly, then gently touched my chin. "Stop apologizing to me." My heartbeat instantly lost stability. People around us looked seconds away from cardiac arrest. Probably because Camille Blake was touching somebody gently. Historical event, honestly. "I'm trying," I whispered. Camille studied my face for another second. Then, good. And just like that, we continued walking. Behind us, whispers exploded immediately. "Oh my God, she's dating the scholarship girl." Camille Blake fell in love. The world is healing. Honestly. Valid reactions. The biggest difference after we started dating was this. Camille stopped hiding her attention. Before, she watched quietly from a distance. Now? Oh, she watched openly, constantly, like she genuinely forgot other people existed sometimes. It was deeply stressful. Example, at lunch, Madison looked between us once and immediately sighed. "This is disgusting." Camille ignored her, because Camille was too busy pushing her untouched fries toward me silently. I stared at them suspiciously. "Why are you looking at potatoes like they insulted your bloodline?" I lowered my voice immediately. "You used to bully me with food?" Madison inhaled sharply. "Oh my God!" She pointed dramatically at Camille. "See? Trauma." Camille's jaw tightened slightly. Immediately guilt flashed across her face. And there it was, that look, the one that appeared every time she remembered what she had done to me. At first, I hated it, because I didn't want Camille destroying herself forever over her mistakes. But I also didn't know how to erase months of fear overnight. Healing was awkward like that. Camille looked down briefly. Then quietly, I know. Silence. The cafeteria around us buzzed loudly. But at our table, everything softened slightly. Madison watched us carefully. Then finally, "You two are emotionally exhausting." "Honestly?" "Correct." I slowly reached toward the fries. Camille noticed immediately. Of course she did. A tiny softness appeared in her eyes. Tiny, almost invisible, but there. And somehow that tiny look affected me more than grand gestures ever could. Tragic. Camille became terrifyingly attentive after we started dating. Not controlling anymore. Just aware. Too aware. One rainy afternoon, she appeared outside my classroom holding an umbrella before the final bell even rang. "How did you know I forgot mine?" "You always forget things when you're stressed." Silence. My heart melted slightly against my will. Another time she arrived at my part-time job carrying dinner because "You skipped lunch again." And somehow that hurt emotionally, because months ago she would have just ordered me to buy her food instead. Growth. Terrifying growth. But the strangest part? Camille became gentle physically. Very gentle. Like she was afraid touching me too suddenly might remind me of the fear. The first time she kissed me at school, she paused beforehand and whispered, "Can I nearly cried on the spot, honestly. Because Camille Blake asking permission felt more intimate than anything else. I nodded quickly. And when she kissed me, soft this time, careful this time, the entire hallway lost its mind behind us. Madison screamed somewhere in the distance, "Oh my God, they're functional now." A month later, my mother's surgery succeeded. I cried immediately when the doctor told us. Actually cried. Right there in the hospital hallway, my knees nearly gave up from relief. Camille caught me before I collapsed completely. warm arms around my waist instantly. Alara? She's okay, I whispered shakily. She's okay. For 1 second, Camille just held me tightly. No coldness, no walls, just relief. Then quietly against my hair, I told you we'd fix it, we. Not you, we. My chest hurt painfully. Later that evening, I found Camille sitting alone outside the hospital vending machine staring down at untouched coffee. She looked exhausted, emotionally drained. I sat beside her quietly. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then finally, you didn't have to pay everything. Camille stayed silent. Rain tapped softly against distant windows. I looked down at my hands. You know, I whispered. For a long time, I thought you only liked controlling people. Camille laughed softly once, not amused. More tired. I did. The honesty surprised me. Camille leaned back against the wall slightly. I liked power. Pause. People feared me. Another pause. I thought that meant I mattered. Silence settled softly around us. Then Camille looked toward me, but you looked at me like I was lonely. My throat tightened immediately, because she had been. Even back then, inside the giant mansion, inside the silence, inside all that coldness. Camille had been lonely long before she met me. You terrified me, I admitted quietly. Pain flickered across her face instantly. I know, but I hesitated. Camille waited silently. You also noticed me. The words came out embarrassingly soft. Camille stared at me for a second, then carefully reached for my hand, slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. You were impossible not to notice, she whispered. My face burned immediately. Wonderful. Love emotional vulnerability. Graduation arrived 2 months later. St. Harrington Academy transformed into flowers, cameras, luxury dresses, and emotionally unstable parents. Students rushed everywhere taking pictures while teachers pretended not to cry. Meanwhile, I stood near the courtyard trying not to panic over speeches. I hate public events, I muttered. Beside me, Camille adjusted the sleeves of her black graduation outfit calmly. You hate attention. Correct. Camille looked toward me. Then softly, you're beautiful, my entire brain stopped functioning. Wonderful. Madison walked past at that exact moment. Oh, good, she sighed dramatically. She's blushing again. Pause. You two are sickening. Camille looked unimpressed. You're loud and you're in love. Madison pointed toward me. It's embarrassing, honestly. Camille didn't deny it, which somehow shocked me more, because old Camille would rather die than publicly admit emotional attachment. Now, she looked at me openly, like loving me wasn't weakness anymore. That realization almost destroyed me emotionally. During the ceremony, Camille actually passed calculus. Barely, but passed. When her name was called, the entire hall applauded politely. Madison screamed, "She can count now." Richard Blake looked deeply exhausted. I laughed so hard I nearly cried. If you are enjoying this mess and you are not subscribed yet, this is your sign, because trust me, it only gets better from here. Camille returned to her seat afterward and leaned down slightly beside me. Quiet enough that only I heard. You bullied me into passing. I stared at her. Excuse me? Me? Camille's mouth tilted faintly. Tiny, rare, beautiful. You're scary when determined, inside my head. Oh my God, she made a joke. Character development truly existed. That night, Camille drove us to the beach. No driver, no security, just us. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath moonlight while cold wind tangled through my hair. We sat on the hood of her car sharing fries quietly. Funny, everything started with fries. Camille rested beside me silently while waves crashed softly nearby. Then after a while, I talked to Principal Lane. I looked toward her. Camille stared out toward the water. I'm funding an anti-bullying program at Harrington. My chest tightened immediately. You are? Camille nodded once. I spent years making people afraid of me. Pause. I don't want that to be the thing I leave behind anymore. Tears burned my eyes instantly, because this was the real apology. Change. Not words, not gifts. Change. I leaned against her shoulder quietly. Camille immediately wrapped an arm around me carefully. Still careful. Always careful with me now. You know, I whispered softly, You're still terrifying sometimes. Camille looked down at me. Only sometimes? I laughed quietly. Then after a second, I'm not scared anymore. Silence. The ocean moved endlessly before us. Camille's expression changed slowly at my words. Something deep, something emotional, something relieved. Then she leaned down and kissed me softly beneath the sound of crashing waves. Warm, patient, certain. And for the first time since meeting Camille Blake, love no longer felt frightening. It felt safe. Later, much later, Madison would ask me when I knew the fear had finally finished. I thought about it for exactly 1 second, then said, "She knelt in the rain for me." Madison stared. That's it. Madison shook her head slowly. "You two are the most dramatic people I have ever met." She walked away before I could argue, which was fine because she was not entirely wrong. Later that night, back inside Camille's bedroom, rain tapped softly against the giant windows while we lay tangled together beneath dark blankets. The same room where I once sat terrified to breathe wrong around her. Now Camille's fingers traced lazy circles against my waist, while my head rested against her chest. "You know what's crazy?" I murmured sleepily. "What? You used to threaten my existence." Camille sighed dramatically above me. "I said I was sorry. You psychologically damaged me. You survived." I looked up at her. Camille looked back calmly. "Then, you called me a sniper rifle in your head once." I froze instantly. "Oh my God." A tiny smile appeared. Madison guessed correctly. Traitor. Absolute traitor. I buried my face into her shoulder immediately. "I'm breaking up with both of you." Camille's quiet laugh vibrated beneath my cheek. Warm. Rare. Beautiful. Then she kissed the top of my head softly. "You're not allowed." I smiled despite myself. Outside, rain poured softly across the city. Inside the dark, quiet room, Camille Blake held me gently like something precious. And maybe that was the strangest part of all. The girl who once made me terrified to exist beside her became the person who finally made me feel safe being loved. And that's a wrap on today's story. I hope it got you. I hope you laughed. I hope you felt something, because that's exactly why we're here. If you have a favorite moment, drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you're new to GL YuriTales, welcome. You found your people. We drop brand new original GL stories every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you never miss a story. Thank you so much for watching. It genuinely means everything. Until next time, take care of yourselves. And remember, the best love stories are always the complicated ones. See you soon.